So may all know the Chainsmokers, maybe from some of their music, hits like Closer featuring Halsey, or Something Just Like This featuring Coldplay, or maybe it's their residency in Las Vegas. But today, we're not going to talk about any of that. We are going to talk about something much more interesting, investing in B2B startups. But one thing we talked about as we were prepping for this call is that usually when you think of celebrity investors, you think of consumer startups and sort of that celebrity investor being that person that helps that consumer startup get into the right rooms and meet the right people. And we were talking a little bit about with this strategy and you guys investing in this side of the house, the B2B side, it's almost an opposite dynamic. Your startup founders are kind of helping you guys get into the space because you are more of an outsider in this category. So Dan, we're actually going to start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the first time you interacted with the Chainsmokers and kind of what that whole scenario looked like?
Yeah, so it was April Fool's Day a few years ago, and I checked my phone and I got this email that said it was from Alex from the Chainsmokers, and that he runs a venture fund.
That's not my email, by the way.
It's like Chainsmokers Official or something.
Yeah.
That is the one you joined me with. But yeah, I read this, and we were putting around together at the time, and we were trying to figure out the final allocations, and it was like, what are the odds that he would possibly email me on the right day when we can actually take money like this? And it happens to be April Fool's Day. This feels like a joke, but I've got to respond. So I replied, and we got on a call the next day or something like that, and it wasn't a joke. It was real.
Thank God.
Yeah, and I did ask you later how you happened to know that was the exact right time, and you told me you had spies everywhere or something like that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And taking a sort of a step back, focusing on you guys now, maybe if you want to talk about sort of what got you interested in investing in Chainguard and companies of that nature to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I hate consumer at this point. It's just like I don't want to discredit any founders working in this space because I think there's a lot of interesting things you can do. I think, that's how we started out as investors, but for us, it felt like the things that people wanted from us were very basic, like distribution and marketing. And for us, like our music business is very sacred to us. And it began to feel like we were becoming like the QVC of venture in some ways. And at the same time, we're curious people and we're reading a lot about these incredible businesses being built, in other really exciting areas that, are in some cases kind of the invisible layer of powering commerce or society or culture. And, and it felt interesting and exciting to us to potentially be an investor that kind of doesn't necessarily fit that mold of someone that would be investing into that space. And for that very same reason, it felt like kind of a market opportunity to kind of stand out and maybe provide, a different perspective or a different type of value back to those types of companies. And I feel like in, the modern day, the things that companies need are tremendously different than what they were 10 years ago. And so, our strategy and the way we've modeled our fund is to kind of be this like Robin to everyone's Batman and kind of provide a different level of support and perspective and connectivity that maybe the traditional fund isn't so focused on, and then hopefully give these founders, the best chance for success. But, the value proposition has to be clear. It's like we want you to still have that great tier one investor or that specialist investor. We're meant to be like a complementary component to that. And it's worked out really well because we, got to meet Dan, and it's been, one of the greatest pleasures of my life.
Anything to add?
I mean, yeah, but, as you guys outlined, most people would think of us as being value add on the consumer side. So when we realized a lot more exciting businesses were being built in, kind of our key verticals that we focus on now, like cybersecurity, B2B SaaS, fintech, it was hard for us to build our brand in those areas because a lot of those people didn't really see the value out of having like a Chainsmoker or celebrity investor just kind of throwing us in your deck and cap. It's not really applicable the same way it would be for a consumer brand. And so, we realized very quickly that like we were going to have to kind of take what we could get. We found a lot of it. We knew about a lot of really exciting companies and had access to them, but we weren't getting the allocations that we're now getting with our third fund. And I think, kind of how we changed that dynamic is, our goal at Mantis was to just get into these deals, outwork every other person on the cap table, figure out whatever scrappy way we could add value, and then in the hopes that our founders would turn around and kind of help us build our brand within that community.
And I know something we talked about on the prep call is the concept that you don't want to be another Sequoia because there's already a Sequoia. And I say in quote, you want to be a role player on an all-star team rather than a starter on a crappy team. because you can sort of help out in other ways that lead investors can't. So maybe if you guys want to talk a little bit about that and sort of like what that value add does look like for you guys when you work with these types of companies.
Yeah, I mean, that's like my go-to phrase. I mean, I think, anyone who's like a basketball fan in here knows that the sixth man, while not a starter, plays a really integral part on any sports team within basketball. And for us, the opportunity to, play our position better than anyone, but, being part of a, great team with a great founding team with a great set of co-investors alongside us, we're new people to this space and we want to learn from the best. And we felt like, positioning ourselves in that way gave us the best chance to kind of absorb those best practices. What are those things, those, incredible firms that have been around for 20 years offer these founders that, put them in a position to continue to be successful. And so for us, that's kind of, we thought about it. And if you look back, over history, like Robert Horry has like more rings than Michael Jordan. And it's because people knew exactly what he brought to the game as far as, his skills and talents, and he did it better than anyone. And that's kind of how we thought about that. But, Drew kind of touched on this when it, came to Chainguard. I mean, I remember speaking to Dan and I was just like, I don't know for certain like what I'm going to do right now, but like I'm going to reach out as much as you comfortably will allow me to find out, what are you dealing with this week? Where do you need help? Where can we offer support? And we've come up with like a lot of great ways, over the last couple of years where we've been able to be helpful. I remember, we played shows for practically every Fortune 500 company on the planet at this point. And we've never been transactional people. It's always about coming into these events and meeting the people that are building these businesses. And, we didn't know we would be one day, running a venture fund, but it worked out really well for us because these are, some really powerful decision makers or leaders in their respective spaces. And, we sit in an interesting kind of point of connectivity where we can call these CFOs, CEOs, CISOs and say, hey, we have a really exciting company. I'd love you to, speak with them and take this opportunity seriously. You make the, it's up to Dan and the team to sell a great piece of software to them that makes a difference, but we can put them in a really great position to hopefully have the opportunity to win that deal. And so we were able to do that, a couple of times in Chainguard's case. And then there's other things from Black Hat conferences and recruiting efforts where, we'll just go above and beyond. And I think it's really just stems from this idea of like life or death for us, where it's like every deal is an opportunity for us to build our reputation in a powerful, meaningful way, or to kind of ruin that and just be the typical passive investor that people believe kind of entertainer athletes have typically been in this space. And so every time we invest, it's like we need to move mountains and really show how much we care and how impactful we can be. And like Dan's also gone to bat for us like 50 times, whether it's reference checks for LPs, whether it's other cybersecurity companies that that we want to invest into, all sorts of different ways where he's gone to bat for us, and that's how we've been able to build our firm in a positive direction.
Yeah, I like the way you put it. You don't want to be Sequoia. There's already Sequoia.
Yep.
You invested in us at the same time Sequoia did. Sequoia's great. They have an amazing platform team, amazing network, all of that. But when you have enough of those investors, it starts to overlap, and you kind of get diminishing returns. It's the same network, and the way I describe you is a completely different one. It's a whole different set of people, a whole different set of connections, a whole different type of value you can add.
100%.
When we're trying to close a candidate or something like that, and we text you and you record a Cameo video that's 5 minutes long, 7 minutes after I texted to you. I was like, where were you, man? Like, are you still in the bathroom? Like, yeah, it's like, but that helps, and we do get great candidates. We get great meetings with companies.
Yeah.
The events you do are awesome.
Yeah.
People really remember them.
We get competitive. I mean, I remember that candidate. He was like, he wouldn't get over the line, right, on like some weird competition.
Got him later.
And then you got him later. But it's like fun to be a part of that. And, for us, specifically with Chainguard, I mean, this is like, going to be, potentially a generational company for our fund and for any, else that's a part of this business. And, to see how a company like that, does their quarterly reporting, how they communicate the things they need, it really sets a high bar and standard for like the other things we should be looking for in founders. So that's kind of going back to that idea of being this sixth man and how it's still valuable to be, it's way more valuable to be on the championship team and learn the best practices of what great leadership looks like, what great investors do to help those companies versus like the crappiest team, but you own 20% of it. And you learn nothing from that exercise. And so, very fortunate to be where we are right now because of those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, I know you just touched on it a little bit, but I want you to maybe double down a bit about sort of like how different is the kind of value add working with a firm like this, and sort of how have you felt it's played out for your startup?
It couldn't be more different. The stuff you do, no one else does, and I say that in a good way.
Yeah.
Like you don't need the same kind of help from 17 different people. It kind of gets redundant. It gets to be too much. Bouncing ideas off of you. The candidate stuff is amazing. People know you. Like people want to meet you. People want to hear about you. The events big VCs do, they're great. They're kind of the same each time over and over again though. The stuff you do at Black Hat, the private dinners that you throw, customers remember those. I think we've gotten more revenue out of those than any other events that we've done.
We were just talking about backstage. So to give context, so Black Hat's this amazing conference that takes place in Vegas every year. You guys were relatively new to the cybersecurity space, and massive conference rooms full of vendors that have infinite amounts of cash. And we all brainstormed together, and we're like, how do we, make you stand out in this crowded room? And we came together with this idea of kind of throwing a VIP dinner at the Win, and then we go up to our room, host like a big pregame, and then we bring everyone back down to our show, and we give them like this incredible backstage or on-stage experience. We didn't realize it was gonna be like 70 dudes, but
We should have realized.
Yeah. But we did have a great time. We were actually just joking about like how, I mean, we've done it a few times now. The idea's progressed a lot, but like how awkward. It's those events start out, but then you end up building like actual real connections with people. And I think that's always been at the center of the Chainsmokers brand philosophy of just like making everyone feel acknowledged, making everyone feel connected and welcome. And I've been to enough events where you can kind of go to these things and walk away maybe with one good relationship. And in these events, everyone walks away feeling like they've made like a lifetime friend through this shared experience of going to our show and having a really good time. And not only did some of those people end up converting into customers for them, which was the ultimate goal, but then we were able to, thanks to Chainguard for getting these people together, build our own advisory network, where now we're able to call up a number of great CISOs in the industry and bounce ideas off of them, see what their buying patterns and habits are right now, the things they're interested and excited about, and then help inform our decisions as we think about the future. So, for us, it's never a zero-sum game. There's always so much value and so many directions you can get out of these things. And again, it's about being different. Like, I'm obsessed with Sequoia. I think they're like, the most incredible fund out there. Our job is to think about like, what does our fund look like and our strengths and our weaknesses, and build something unique that plays off of what typically exists out there in a helpful way.
People start asking us 6 months before Black Hat if we're going to do that again.
Yeah.
So customers, prospects, everybody. So,
Love that.
Are we doing it again next year?
Why not?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, and you brought this up a little bit earlier about how you have been helpful with references for LPs and things like that, and you sort of play a pivotal role in sort of getting you guys more into the cybersecurity space and more into just being connected with companies like that in general. And I'm curious how you feel about that, Dan, and like how you feel about that role of bringing one of your VCs just further into a space like that.
Yeah, always happy to do reference calls like that. Always happy to talk about the value you add, whether it's LPs, other founders that you're talking to. Those are the best ones. I always love talking to other founders. They ask what you do with us. Sometimes I get a little jealous that you're going to split your time if you get into too many good companies. But yeah, you help us. It's like you said, it's not zero sum.
Yeah.
The more companies you get into, the bigger the events can be, the better of a time everyone's going to have.
Yeah. I mean, that's been just so valuable for us. At the end of the day, we have a tremendous amount of respect for the other founders and the investors in cybersecurity. I mean, it's a really challenging space, incredibly technical. Like, I won't even pretend. We have an amazing woman, Savina, who helps lead that practice for us, and she's done an amazing job, building that space for us, and allows me and Drew to lead into things which we're good at, which is like, kicking down doors, building those relationships, and the community. And I think for us, it's, we actually are trying to be active members of that community, not just kind of tourists coming in, hearing about the hottest company. I mean, at the time, Chainguard was a very solid bet in terms of Dan's experience in open source supply chain security software, but at the same time, it was, a pretty wide open white space. And so you learn a lot through that practice of doing that stuff, and you also like earn goodwill. I mean, investing is a very psychological game. I get a lot of unnecessary credit where people are like, oh man, you're a really good investor. And I'm like, sent a cold Hail Mary email on April 1st that, like, lucky enough Dan, was kind enough to answer. But we understood, what was happening at the time broadly within cybersecurity, and this felt like directionally a really potentially impactful company for that space. And to watch how they've grown so fast over the last few years, it's just mind-blowing, the pace of adoption and their ability to upsell and, the logos that they're signing up. I mean, we're basically useless. I'm like, now I am fully a tourist. I just get to hang out with Dan. He caught a bunch of fish earlier today that we're going to eat tonight. That's not like a metaphor. That's literally...
Real fish.
Yeah.
I think our sales team keeps you busy, though.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, one of our new sales reps tried to go straight an email for you to forward, and I remember you sent it back, and you're like, I would never send this. Here's how I would write this differently. It's not personal enough. This is how I would tweak this. I know these people. So you're working with like individuals on our team. I don't even see all the work you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was in touch with one of your interns, still am. But I think that, that piece of the puzzle has been really exciting for us. I mean, we come from, this hype machine blog aggregator days where we would email writers on the internet asking them to post our music. And, that taught us a lot about, just communication and how important it is to build real relations with people and not just use everybody as you're moving through the space. And I think for us, throughout our career, a good introduction is something where both sides of the equation come away with some value from it. And, we understand the perception of the entertainer investor. Ashton was on one of these stages just before we got up here. I mean, he's been a, North Star for us in terms of what that type of investor can look like. For us, we understand how much extra work we have to do to kind of change that perception for people, but we're excited to do that. And I'm just glad I'm not investing in any more water companies at this point.
And a quick reminder that we will be doing Q&A in a couple of minutes, so if people do have questions you thought we were going to get to, maybe we haven't yet, definitely feel free to line up at the mics and we will get them answered for you. But something you just mentioned, I am curious how you guys think about being taken more seriously in this space and sort of having the confidence to back these different companies. Because of course, like you said, if you get in this space, you make a couple wrong bets, just no one takes you seriously after that. So how do you guys think about finding conviction in these companies, having the confidence to invest in them kind of with that goal of being taken seriously as an investor in this space?
Yeah, I think like the strength of, not just Mantis, our fund, but also Chainsmokers has been about community and inclusivity and figuring out just like how to infiltrate a network. I mean, like Alex was kind of like downplaying the way that, we got into, we were just two kids that made music that was honestly not really that good when we started. We were kind of cutting our teeth as writers and producers at the same time as, mainly Alex was like leading the charge and like, we would remix these songs off of Hype Machine, which was the first viral music chart on the internet. So we were already like making dance remixes, which was also a trending genre of stuff that people already wanted to hear. Alex would go into the back end of Hype Machine, look at all like the blogs they scrape music from, send, I kid you not, like 500, every time we do, I'd be remixing a song every week. I'd give it to him. He'd send 500 personalized emails, because what he realized is, all these kids were getting these blanket, boring promotional emails from record labels that, and these were just kids that wanted to be closer to music and artists and all this stuff. So he would find out that kid went to go, to go to Syracuse and be like, dude, it fucking sucks. You're in Syracuse. It's in January, and your football team still sucks. And like, within like 1 year, I went to Syracuse, so I can say that.
Yeah.
But within 1 year, we had gone from like nobody in the music scene to, like this relevant, cool thing that was happening on blogs. And I feel like that approach has transformed throughout our music career. That's now kind of come into where we're at in investing is like, let's just get in there. Let's make sure we're adding value. Let's add, bring this like level of inclusivity that like, and fun, which is really not in a lot of places in this industry, no offense. And no one's here to really have a fun time. Here to make things go well. But, I don't know, that was kind of like always been our value add is like just getting in there, learning, kind of stepping in with like the humility to say that we were not experts in any of these areas, but a really nice compliment that we've got from some investors that we look up to is they, in the beginning they commended us that we did a good job of choosing who to listen to. And I think we've kept that through whether it's other investors, whether it's, guys that we're working with that are also teachers or ours like Dan, and just kind of always, having that mentality is like, we're just here to learn and help. And we have a Swiss Army knife of really random different skills that I think a lot of investors in this space, don't have access to, and just being humble and offering those services to everyone that we work with. And that we're learning as much as we're helping. So
I mean, the first email I ever got, which is shitty first email to get, but it was like the day we announced our first fund, and it was like someone forwarded me an email. It was like, "This is the end of venture capital," and I was like, "Sick, all right, nice."
Don't worry, that guy's name's on the list.
So
somewhere.
only uphill
Special
from here.
list.
But I understood what they were talking about, and certainly that was like a really frothy, crazy time in 2019, 2020. Where things were a bit wild, but that was a really motivating concept, and I think the thing, like Drew said, it was simple. It's like, just you got to show up. And that's the difference that I think we certainly try to step with our first foot forward, is like, show up for your founders in a meaningful way, care. We've started enough businesses with great business partners and bad business partners to know, how important it is to have people around the table that just care about anything. That could be like making a dinner reservation when your wife is pregnant and you just want to go to her favorite restaurant. Like, these are little things that can like really, take something off someone's level so they can focus on the things that matter. Or it can be an introduction to a huge company that becomes their first design partner. But being versatile like that is something that's really important to us. And, now we're a team of 14 investors. And everyone has a very different background within Mantis, and I think that's really intentional, because we want, like you mentioned earlier, to kind of look and feel different in terms of the strings we can pull on to be resourceful and helpful, and I think that served us really well as it relates just to our strategy. But we still have a ton of work to do, and we don't try to do a lot of these talking engagements because I want to let the results speak for themselves. But getting to sit next to Dan, who's easily one of the best, if not the best company in our whole portfolio, and just the things he's taught us about getting into a space that I don't think at any point in my life I would have said I'd be a cybersecurity investor, is pretty incredible. And I think if anything, hopefully it inspires people to feel comfortable to step out of their comfort zone and do things that challenge them. But I think anything's really possible if you really just want to commit the time, energy, and effort to it. And like Drew said, have humility, lean on people that are experts, and I think you'll be surprised by how open and everyone is to helping you. And that was something really eye-opening to me, reaching out to different, whether it's investors or other founders, and how willing they were to like give me an hour of their time and explain and walk me through things, and that really made a huge difference.
And just anecdotally, like, we've been working with you for about 2 years now, and your reputation, your brand, like, you've done a huge amount in 2 years. Like, in the beginning, people were kind of skeptical that we were working with you.
Yeah.
Now other investors, other companies reach out to me for intros to you because they want to get to know you and work
Totally.
with you. It's completely flipped.
LinkedIn, I'm telling you, it's all LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
All right. And a reminder with the questions, we are, of course, asking questions. We are not doing pitches. But we are going to take a question from over here because you have been patiently waiting for a long time.
Yeah, hi. So before the question, this is a fan moment. So the first English song that I listened was Closure. So thanks for that. Now the question is, what did music industry teach you that you apply to the businesses you are involved in?
Great question.
I mean, I can think of one. I mean, I've been harping on this a lot. It's just the idea of listening to your core community of users. I think I read about this a lot with successful businesses, and how important it is to stay, kind of locked in with those first group of power users. And then sometimes you kind of lose focus of who those people are and begin expanding too fast or into too many, different horizontal areas that, might build the ultimate platform at the end of the day. And there's certainly a time and place for growth. But I think, not losing sight of those core users and building everything with them in mind of how do you best serve those customers or those fans in our case, is something really important. And I think we've done that really well at certain times in our career and not as well in other times in our career when we got too big. And I think, at the end of the day, those people are your best promoters of what you're doing. They're your ultimate fans. I mean, I know as far as music, we get served playlists, we get served radio ads, you're in a Walmart, you hear songs. But ultimately, the thing that influences you most is your friend turning to you and saying, like, this song is gas, like, you know, and then you listen and you're like, yeah, that's a really good song. I'm going to listen to that song myself now too. And I think, you know, products are exactly the same way. Whether you're in cybersecurity or in consumer or anything for that matter, it's someone, you know, vouching for you and really enjoying the experience that you've created for them. And then as you get bigger, it's easy to kind of start thinking about like, oh, now my users are 8 years old and 50 years old. But it's like, no, they're not. They're still the 24-year-olds from college that love electronic music and do everything with that in mind. And like I know Chapel Roan said something recently about that and how every decision they make is made with like their core 50 fans in mind. And if it doesn't serve them, they don't do it. I think that might be a little extreme, but like in application, but I think she's, you know, absolutely right in terms of the message of what that sends.
So you're not going to do a country album?
We were way ahead of country. We did
some country collabs.
Yeah, we did Kelsey Ballerini and
Florida Georgia Line.
Florida Georgia Line before anyone else did. No one listened to them, but
Thank you
actually
so much.
Kelsey did.
Kelsey.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming out today. My name is Maher. I'm a senior at UC Berkeley studying data science. Go Bears.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, I actually sold my first startup. Since then, I've used that acquisition money to create a real estate company, an alternative alcohol, CBD infused sweet drink with some NFL
Term
players.
sheet right now.
And I'm also a DJ with over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And I was, you know, just asking you, because you guys are also involved in so many different things. I was wondering if you can give some advice on how to not mess up. Because I'm at that point where I'm trying to do everything, and it's going, and I'm almost there at the finish line, and I just don't want to lose it all, so.
Yeah, how to not mess up. Well, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna mess up in some way, shape, or form, and that's like totally cool, and everyone does that. So, and you can learn a lot from that too. But also, I think, you know, I'm trying to like say this, and as guys that we have a tequila company and a VC, having both of those in 2021 was really painful.
Yeah.
We were just like every trendy business. Of course, we had that.
Yeah.
So, but I think, you know, there are some ventures that we've started that have been deprioritized because of the success of our others. And I think like us, kind of going back to what Alex said, just like focusing on what our core talents are and making sure that, you know, the businesses that we're starting and that we're putting all our effort into all kind of stem from like the same essence of what our values are, what we're good at, and those are like inclusivity, creating community. I think, you know, not making a country album, you know, we're really just sticking into like really like looking at yourself with self-awareness and being like, this is what we do, this is what we add value. Does this business make sense, or is it just exciting right now? And we have an opportunity to do it. You really want to just make stuff that's close to your core. And just harness that energy.
Yeah, it's hard to be great at anything and successful at anything. We were lucky enough to have a lunch with Jimmy Buffett once, and we're asking him about Margaritaville and the empire he built and hospitality and restaurants. And he was like, this was like the easiest, not an easy business, but the easiest extension for me of creating an environment that always felt like a Jimmy Buffett show, whether it was like a bar, a restaurant, or hotel. At that point in time, he was like, I'm building retirement communities now because my fans are now at that age. And he's like, so I'd say to you, like Drew said, figure out what are those like things that are natural extensions of how you've become successful in Chainsmokers, and find opportunities that surround that. And, you know, as it relates to venture, the more digging we did, the more we understood it was about showing up, relationships, connectivity, being curious, being competitive. And, you know, and that's why we felt comfortable. But it does take a lot of commitment, and you really do have to apply yourself. And, you know, that's why we're not veterinarians. You know, if that would make any sense.
Perfect. And we have time for one last question, a quick one.
Okay. Kudos to your success. Thank you for your insight. Alex, we exchanged some words on LinkedIn. I'm the founder of Regimen, a platform for industry leaders like yourselves to mentor anyone who needs it with actionable steps and instant guidance. I'm wondering, for all the entrepreneurs in the room and myself, and as industry leaders, how do you prefer to be approached to, you know, join someone's platform like Regimen, or to seek, you know, early stage investment, especially from Mantis, and what are your benchmarks for early stage investments in the pre-seed or seed round?
60 seconds.
Yeah, okay, really quick. I mean, so we do seed and Series A. We focus on, 5 core areas: cybersecurity, cloud, data infra, health tech, gaming, and then we have an opportunity bucket, and AI, of course, it's everything. For us, you can reach us, and we're reachable people. I pride myself on my responsiveness. End of the day, it does have to somehow fit into the thesis of what we believe. I mean, we are price-sensitive investors. The way we model our investments and underwrite them is super critical to the long-term success of our funds. For me personally, I've always leaned heavily into a great founder and team. I think ideas evolve and change over time, but that's an important piece. And when we met, Dan and Kim, it was like these people have been building an open source cybersecurity in Google for as long, a very long time. I can't think of a better duo to tackle this area. That understand what it means to build community and awareness. And so I think those things are all critically important. There's great ideas at the wrong time also. And sometimes that's you'll pass on a good sounding investment because you've made your investments for the quarter, and that's just kind of how it goes. I think, a solid deck explaining who you are, what the opportunity is, and trying to somehow find some middle ground between you and the investor to build that bridge of the relationship is really important.
Thank you so much. Can we connect after the show?
And you guys can catch both Alex and Drew later on the Strictly VC stage, but that is all the time we have here today. So please join me in thanking our panelists.
That went really